Hello, HP Lovecraft Festival. My name is Jay Wolfel. I was a guest there in 2005 showing my first feature film, Beyond Dream's Door, which was written up in Lurk in the Lobby as being very Lovecraft-esque. Since then, I've done another feature called Asylum of Darkness, which is not screened there yet, which is also very Lovecraft-esque. Tonight, I'm here virtually, which I apologize for, to sort of set the stage for how H.P. Lovecraft connects to Fall of the House of Usher, which it very much does. Lovecraft wrote, beyond all the tentacly things we all know well, wrote a nonfiction book about horror as literature and the supernatural. It's literally called Supernatural and Horror in Literature, which goes into the writers that he thinks are important before him, some concurrent to him, and what he expects from supernatural literature. He also talks that the mainstream literature didn't want to accept horror because it didn't, as he said, always have to have the insipid idealism, the happy ending in every single story. And this sets horror apart, and to his way of thinking, makes it better, or certainly the equal to any mainstream, already accepted literature. Lovecraft eventually himself has been accepted as literature, and Poe eventually was too. H.P. himself admired Poe, and in particular in this book talks about the fall of the House of Usher for giving obscure life to inorganic things. This aspect is also a key function of what this film's director, John Epstein, feels film itself does best. The film is a medium that deals specifically in motion and in time, and that objects are no longer objects. They have their own life when filmed. This is part of film's language, is giving this life to objects and everything that's shot or portrayed through film at its best. So watch how objects and animals are used in this film over and over again. The French were early to embrace Poe's as literary merits, and Poe came to France through translations by Baudelaire, who is certainly a well-known author on his own. He admired and was influenced by Poe. Lovecraft points out that these translations are very urbane and also are very Frenched up, so to speak. These translations would have been what John Epstein first read. So it's somewhat filtered from Poe's original prose intentions. Epstein, for a time, has kind of become forgotten, but he's going through a period of rediscovery, and Fall of the House of Usher is cited as being one of his best films. Despite this, it's never previously been translated properly into English with English intertitles. So that's what you're going to get to see tonight. And that was a key reason why I undertook restoring this film, doing a score, doing some color tinting, so that audiences could experience it more closely through a better translation. Epstein, the director, was a writer and a philosopher, and he wrote a lot about film, which was a new art, and how and what it should be in its own terms. I mentioned that time was one of these elements. Epstein doesn't use time in a realistic manner. So watch how he uses slow motion and superimposition. It's a surreal film, but watch how those elements are used and manipulated. This is the first feature-length adaptation of any of Poe's works. It's expanded, or padded if you prefer, by including parts of Poe's story, The Oval Portrait, which you're also going to see as a separate movie on its own tonight too. Also, strangely, that some of the opening comes from Dracula. His director Luis Buñuel, the Spanish director, a very famous director, and he got his start, his first film job, working on this movie. He gets credited many places as a co-author of the screenplay, although Buñuel himself downplayed that he had any real creative involvement. But watching the film, you'll see surrealism used, which certainly Buñuel did initially. And so you can see influence there, not to take anything away from Epstein and his own use of surrealism. There's also in this movie, which I found surprising, some sort of Poe in-jokes, especially watch for the scene with the black cat. Another element of Usher you won't find actually in this adaptation is the whole idea of incest. You'll see, I won't tell you, but you'll see how the film sort of gets around this element from the original story. This could be and might well be a commercial change, perhaps by John Epstein himself. Epstein was looking for commercial success despite his film as a pure art. every filmmaker, in order to make more movies, needs more money, and so the previous ones need to have made money. This turned out to be Epstein's third financial loser in a row. It was a turning point. After this, he went out to the coast and made a couple low-budget films that, although they're fiction, now are seen as sort of steps towards neorealism, which is a whole movement in film that didn't really come about or is usually credited to Italy post-World War II. So his coastal films are shot with non-actors and are sort of the antithesis of the artifice of this movie. No sets, all this kind of thing. The lead actor in this movie, Jean Bebecourt, I think he gives a really exceptional performance. He went on to make over 100 films. But the avant-garde circles in Paris, where Epstein was, were angry that he didn't cast Antonin Armand, who's the man who created and named the so-called theater of cruelty. So this movie was a turning point. Epstein became a bit of an outsider from the people who previously had embraced him. And the film did not make money for him at the time, but as I said, now it's one of his best known and considered one of his masterpieces. Something I wanted to include in my version of the score is something that Poe himself specifically laid out in the story, which is that Roderick Usher plays the guitar. So the score features guitar music in it, but also very specifically, Poe said that Usher is playing Carl Van Weber's Waltz, which is actually the last piece of music that he wrote. So finally, you'll get to hear what Poe wanted you to hear and what Usher is playing to cover up the sounds of his, I'll just say, compatriot who may be coming back from the tomb in this movie. Let's end on some self-promotion. If you like this music, you can find it and get it for yourself on my website, jwoelfel.film. So you're one of the first audiences to see this version of the movie. I hope you enjoy it. And that's why and how HP Lovecraft might say you should enjoy it too. Dare I? Thank you. Enjoy the movie.